India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the two-day National Conference of District Judiciary at Bharat Mandapam in the national capital on Saturday. The two-day conference, organized by the Supreme Court of India, will host 5 working sessions that will deliberate and discuss on the issues related to district judiciary, such as infrastructure and human resources, inclusive courtrooms for all, judicial security and judicial wellness, case management and judicial training. Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud, Union Minister Arjun Ram Meghwal and President of the Supreme Court Bar Association were also present at the occasion. On the occasion, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also unveiled a stamp and a coin commemorating 75 years of the establishment of Supreme Court of India. Prime Minister underlined that the Supreme Court of India's journey of 75 years does not merely associate with one institution, but it is also a journey of India's constitution, its values and the journey of India evolving as a democracy. The Prime Minister also highlighted the crucial role of the makers of the Constitution and the entire judicial system in this journey. He also mentioned the role of crores of citizens of India who entrusted this judicial system. Addressing the gathering, Prime Minister Narendra Modi noted that significant efforts have been made at various levels to eliminate delays in justice in the past decades.
डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोर्ट्स में करीब 4.5 करोड़ केसेस पेंडिंग है। न्याय में इस देरी को खत्म करने के लिए बीते 1 दशक में कई स्तर पर काम हुआ है। पिछले 10 वर्षों में देश ने जुडिशियल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के विकास के लिए लगभग 8,000 करोड़ रुपए खर्च किए हैं। आपको एक और तथ्य जानकर खुशी होगी, पिछले 25 साल में जितनी राशि जुडिशियल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर खर्च की गई, उसका 75% पिछले 10 वर्षों में ही हुआ है। इन्हीं 10 वर्षों में डिस्ट्रिक्ट जुडिशरी के लिए 7,500 से ज्यादा कोर्ट हॉल और 11,000 रेसिडेंशियल यूनिट्स तैयार की गई है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi also highlighted the significance of newly introduced criminal bills. He emphasized that these reforms are crucial for building a more robust and efficient legal framework in the country.
कानूनों की भावना है, सिटीजन फर्स्ट, डिग्निटी फर्स्ट एंड जस्टिस फर्स्ट। हमारे क्रिमिनल लॉज शासक और गुलाम वाली कॉलोनियल सोच से आजाद हुए हैं। सेडिशन जैसे अंग्रेजी कानूनों को खत्म किया गया है। न्याय संहिता की सोच नागरिकों को सजा देगा, यही एकमात्र नहीं है, लेकिन नागरिकों को सुरक्षा देना भी है। इसलिए एक और महिलाओं और बच्चों के खिलाफ होने वाले अपराधों पर सख्त कानून बने हैं। दूसरी ओर पहली बार मामूली अपराधों में सजा के तौर पर कम्युनिटी सर्विस का प्रावधान किया गया है। भारतीय साक्ष्य अधिनियम के तहत सबूत के तौर पर इलेक्ट्रॉनिक और डिजिटल रिकॉर्ड को भी मान्यता मिली है। भारतीय नागरिक सुरक्षा संहिता के तहत इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मोड में समन भेजने की व्यवस्था बनाई गई है। इससे न्यायपालिका पर पेंडिंग केसेस का बोझ भी कम होगा।
And drawing the attention of the gathering against burning issues, Prime Minister emphasized that atrocities against women and the safety of children were a serious concern in the society today. He further highlighted that many strict legislations were enacted for the safety of women across the country.
आज महिलाओं के खिलाफ अत्याचार, बच्चों की सुरक्षा समाज की एक गंभीर चिंता है। देश में महिलाओं की सुरक्षा के लिए कई कठोर कानून बने हैं। 2019 में सरकार ने फास्ट ट्रैक स्पेशल कोर्ट की स्थापना की योजना बनाई थी। इसके तहत अहम गवाहों के लिए डिपोजिशन सेंटर्स का प्रावधान है। इसमें भी डिस्ट्रिक्ट मॉनिटरिंग कमेटीज की भूमिका महत्वपूर्ण हो सकती है। इस कमेटी में डिस्ट्रिक्ट जज, डीएम और एसपी भी शामिल होते हैं। क्रिमिनल जस्टिस सिस्टम के विभिन्न पहलुओं के बीच समन्वय बनाने में उनकी भूमिका अहम होती है। हमें इन कमेटियों को और अधिक सक्रिय करने की जरूरत है। महिला अत्याचार से जुड़े मामलों में जितनी तेजी से फैसले आएंगे, आधी आबादी को सुरक्षा का उतना ही बड़ा भरोसा मिलेगा।
And in his address, Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud termed the District Judiciary as the backbone of the judiciary and said it is a crucial component of the rule of law.
The quality of our work and the conditions in which we provide justice to citizens determines whether they have confidence in us and is a test of our own accountability to society. The district judiciary is therefore called upon to shoulder tremendous responsibility and is aptly described as the backbone of the Indian judiciary. The spine is the core of the nervous system. To sustain the spine of the legal system, we must stop calling the district judiciary as the subordinate judiciary. 75 years after independence, the time has come for us to bury one more relic of the British era, the colonial mindset of subordination.
And now DD India correspondent Vikas Sarthi joins us to discuss more on this. Thank you so much, Vikas, for joining us, and a very good evening to you. Now, PM has once again emphasized on women and child safety. We've seen a lot of structural reforms as well. What have been the top highlights from today's address of Prime Minister at the event, Vikas?
All right, Deepika. So Prime Minister again said that it is a major concern for people across the country. The number of incidents of crime against women and child are rising, and in fact, to address these issues, Prime Minister said that we in 2019, the government in 2019 introduced some measures, including fast-track courts, additional funds and additional manpower provided for setting up these fast-track courts, and in fact, to enable that the witnesses should come forward without any fear. Some other provisions were made, like they can record their statement at certain deposition centers. So all these provisions are there, but we need to strengthen those initiatives, and that because of that, Prime Minister said that at the district level, police officials, judges and other administrative wings are included in those committees, and it need to be strengthened further to address the growing menace of crime against women. In fact, he also said that in the new legislations, in the BNS and BNSS, the government has focused more on addressing crime against women and children, and in fact, some provisions have been made stricter and harsher than the Indian Penal Code. As far as the implementation of these provisions are concerned, Prime Minister also called upon the higher judiciary, particularly the Supreme Court, to start an initiative and hold a kind of training program for district judges and other stakeholders like public prosecutors to understand the provisions of BNS and BNSS, so that the litigant must get benefits of those particular provisions. Like in the BNS and BNSS, more focus has been on reducing the number of prisoners in the jail, and the other major initiative in the BNS and BNSS is to address the issue of crime against women. So these two issues have been addressed by the government by bringing major amendments. Now is the time for the judiciary to implement those provisions in the coming days, and for that reason, Prime Minister requested Supreme Court of India particularly to engage district level judges and hold special training program for these district judges across the country.
And also importantly, Vikas, the synergy between the central government and key judicial system of India speaks volume about India's government and governance as well. How does this reflect globally?
All right, Deepika, so pendency of cases in India has been a major issue for several decades, and now with the introduction of information technology, the courts are trying their best to reduce those pendencies. In fact, we have seen in the Supreme Court that special courts have been convened. National Lok Adalat has been convened by the Supreme Court for the first time, and through digital means, through information technology, the stakeholders, lawyers, litigants connected with the proceedings, and because of that particular thing, in a week, Supreme Court disposed of thousands of cases. So the major focus of Supreme Court, particularly Chief Justice of India, is on the using information and technology to track the pendency of cases and to dispose of those cases. We have seen in the past as well that Chief Justice requested different high courts to introduce these information and technology mechanisms, to use AI, artificial intelligence, as far as possible in disposing of those cases. As far as the issue of information and technology services in district courts are concerned, the government has provided, as just Prime Minister mentioned, that 8,000 crores have been provided for e-court projects in 3 different phases. So the focus of the government is to employ as much as resources for the judiciary, because we have seen in the past as well that because of pendency, several arbitration cases which are very crucial for at international level, arbitration cases generally refer to Singapore and other countries. Though we have experts of arbitration in India as well, but due to pendency of cases in the court, the larger companies, the multinational companies, prefer other countries, particularly Singapore for arbitration processes. So we can attract those companies, those multinational companies in India for arbitration if we have a robust system of courts and procedures. And particularly, we have seen in the Supreme Court that Chief Justice of India discourages lawyers to bring paper books with them. He always insists upon giving their petition, their submission, their affidavit in digital form, so that it can process faster at the level of courts, and apart from it, it can be sent to the stakeholders, to the other parties in as fast as possible. So the focus of government and the Supreme Court is to bring as much technology at different level, from the right from the district judiciary up to the Supreme Court.
And becoming environmentally sustainable as well. Thank you so much, Vikas, for joining us and bringing us the latest on this new development. Moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi flagged off 3 Vande Bharat trains via video conferencing on Saturday. Realizing the Prime Minister's vision of Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat, the state-of-the-art Vande Bharat Express will improve connectivity on 3 routes, namely Meerut-Lucknow, Madurai-Bengaluru and Chennai-Nagarkoil. These trains will boost connectivity in the states of UP, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. These new Vande Bharat trains will also provide the people of the region a world-class means to travel with speed and comfort. The introduction of these Vande Bharat Express trains will herald a new standard of rail service to meet the needs of regular travelers, professionals, business and student community in immense measure. In his address, Prime Minister Modi emphasized on the drastic increase in railway budget allocations for both Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, reflecting government's commitment to enhancing infrastructure and also modernizing the rail networks in these states.
इस साल के बजट में हमने तमिलनाडु को 6,000 करोड़ रुपए से ज्यादा का रेलवे बजट दिया है। ये बजट 2014 की तुलना में 7 गुना से अधिक है। तमिलनाडु में 6 वंदे भारत ट्रेन पहले से ही चल रही है। इन 2 ट्रेन के साथ ये संख्या अब 8 हो जाएगी। इसी तरह कर्नाटका के लिए भी इस बार 7,000 करोड़ से ज्यादा का बजट आवंटित हुआ है। ये बजट भी 2014 की तुलना में 9 गुना अधिक है। आज वंदे भारत ट्रेनों की 8 जोड़ियां पूरे कर्नाटका को जोड़ रही हैं।
Prime Minister also praised how the expansion of Vande Bharat Express network has had a significant increase in tourism and local economies in the region, benefiting both the residents along with the visitors.
जिन जगहों तक वंदे भारत एक्सप्रेस की सुविधा पहुंच रही है, वहां पर्यटकों की संख्या बढ़ रही है। पर्यटकों की संख्या बढ़ने का मतलब है वहां कारोबारियों, दुकानदारों की आय में बढ़ोतरी हो रही है। हमारे यहाँ रोजगार के नए अवसर भी तैयार हो रहे हैं।
Prime Minister also applauded how Vande Bharat Express has become the new face of modern Indian railways.
वंदे भारत आधुनिक होती भारतीय रेलवे का नया चेहरा है। आज हर शहर में, हर रूट पर वंदे भारत की मांग है। हाई स्पीड ट्रेनों के आने से लोगों में अपने व्यापार और रोजगार को, अपने सपनों को विस्तार देने का भरोसा जगता है। आज देश भर में 102 वंदे भारत रेलवे सेवाएं संचालित हो रही हैं। अब तक 3 करोड़ से ज्यादा लोग इन ट्रेनों से यात्रा कर चुके हैं। ये संख्या वंदे भारत ट्रेनों की सफलता का सबूत तो है ही, ये आकांक्षी भारत की आकांक्षाओं और सपनों का प्रतीक भी है।
Calling China a unique problem, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said that India is not the only country in the world that is having a debate about that country. Addressing the ET World Leaders Forum in New Delhi on Saturday, the minister said everyone chose to consciously overlook the nature of Chinese production decades ago and are now complaining.
There is a general China problem. We are not the only country in the world which is having a debate about China. Go to Europe and ask them, what is today among your major economic or national security debates. It's about China. Look at the United States. It's obsessed with China, and rightly so in many ways. So the fact is, let's not make out as though it's only India which has a China problem. India has a China problem, a special China problem. That's over and above the world's general China problem.
Time to take a short break, but still to come on DD India NewsHour. Russia claims its forces take control of Kyiv in Ukraine's Donetsk region. Israel's military claim its forces killed 2 terrorists in separate incidents in the occupied West Bank. And Donald Trump calls Harris defective at Moms for Liberty meeting.
So will Malayalam industry be able to remove this taint?
The government has had to bite the bullet because the government withheld the report. The communist government in Kerala withheld the report first and foremost. It was the public pressure, it was the mounting, anguish of the women that eventually led to that.
There has to be gender sensitization of the public prosecutor, of the police, of the lawyer fraternity, of the judiciary. So silence itself is a crime. If you do not stand up for justice, if you do not open your mouth, if you're not vocal about it.
Welcome back after that short break. Now, updates on the Russia-Ukraine ongoing conflict. The Ukrainian Air Force said on Saturday that their air defense shot down 24 out of 52 drones launched by Russia during overnight attacks on 8 regions across Ukraine. The statement, issued via messaging app, noted that 25 Shahed drones had fallen on their own, while 3 others had flown towards Russia and Belarus. Kyiv city officials said there were no reports of anybody being hurt in the attacks or of any major damage being caused. Meanwhile, on Saturday, the Russian Defense Ministry said that their forces had gained control of Kyiv settlement in eastern Ukraine's Donetsk region. Donetsk is one of 4 Ukrainian regions that Russia says it has annexed, even though it does not fully control all of it. A territorial claim that Kyiv and the West have rejected as illegal, and one that Ukraine has vowed to reverse by force. Meanwhile, 5 people were killed and 46 injured in Ukrainian attack on the southwestern Russian city of Belgorod late on Friday. Ukraine has staged frequent attacks on Belgorod and other Russian border regions in recent months. Ukraine and Russia say they do not deliberately target civilians in the war that began when Russia sent thousands of troops into its smaller neighbors in February 2022. Moscow has called the operation a special military operation. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky dismissed the head of the country's Air Force, Mykola Oleshchuk, on Friday, days after the crash of an F-16 warplane in what may have been a friendly fire incident. Zelensky gave no specific reason for the decision, but said that it was necessary to strengthen military leadership.
I have decided to replace the commander of the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. I am immensely grateful to all our military pilots, all engineers, all mobile fire group warriors, and all air defense personnel. To everyone who is truly fighting for Ukraine for results.
And DD India correspondent Dasha Chernishova joins us from Moscow. Good evening from India, Dasha. Now, Russia is claiming its forces are taking control of Kirov in Ukraine's Donetsk region. What more are you tracking on this latest development, Dasha?
Well, indeed, the settlement of Kyiv has come under the Russian control. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, this development means that the Russian armed forces will have an opportunity to advance even further on this direction, because they have been on the outskirts of Toretsk, and this is the same direction. So this recent development is expected to facilitate the further advance of the Russian military in the Donetsk People's Republic. Russia calls it liberation of those territories, and they have also claimed that they have been advancing and strengthening their positions on all positions along the front line. Meanwhile, we're also hearing from the Russian military officials that despite the Ukrainian offensive and the incursion of Russia's Kursk region, they have been able to maintain the same pace of their advances in the so-called special military operation, and that they did not have to pull their troops out from the Donetsk direction or any other to defend Russia's Kursk and Belgorod regions.
And also, Dasha, what is the latest casualty report from Belgorod, as multiple injuries are being reported after Ukrainian attack on Belgorod?
That's right. We've heard about the major attack by the Ukrainian side against the city of Belgorod, where at least 5 people have been killed. 1 woman and 4 men have died on the spot before even the medical cars managed to arrive there. We understand from the regional authorities that the strike has been carried out with the cluster munitions from the Vampire MLRs, and as a result of that strike, at least 46 other people have been wounded. That includes children. To this moment, the governor, Vyacheslav Gladkov, said that at least 37 people remain in hospital, and 11 of them are in a very critical condition. That indeed includes children. Other damage has been reported to the city, with the roofs being destroyed, and we also understand that one of these strikes has been carried out near the park, near the shopping mall. So that explains the large casualty rate and the death toll among the civilian population. Russia has been repeatedly saying that it is trying to create the so-called buffer zone in Ukraine, on the Ukrainian side, as a result, because of those Ukrainian attacks against Russia's border regions. But obviously, this work is in progress, and that's why the new direction, the new Kharkiv front, has been opened in the Russian operation against the Ukrainian armed forces.
All right. Thank you so much, Tasha, for joining us and bringing us the latest on the ongoing crisis between Russia and Ukraine. Moving on, Russian President Vladimir Putin will visit Mongolia next week. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that Moscow has no concerns about President Vladimir Putin's upcoming visit to Mongolia, despite an arrest warrant issued against him by International Criminal Court or the ICC. The ICC had issued the warrant in 2023 accusing Vladimir Putin of war crimes related to the illegal deportation of hundreds of Ukrainian children following Russia's military operation in Ukraine that began in February 2022. While Russia is not a member of the ICC and does not recognize its jurisdiction, Mongolia is a member of the court and acknowledges its authority. In a first reaction to Ukraine's incursion into Russia's Kursk region, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that the incursion is legitimate, and Ukrainian President Zelensky has made clear that the operation aims at creating a buffer zone to prevent further Russian attacks from across the border. The NATO chief said Ukraine was running a risk with the advance onto Russian territory, but that it was up to Kyiv how to conduct its military campaign. Meanwhile, the European Union's defense ministers have wrapped up a meeting in Brussels focusing on the bloc's support for Ukraine. The European Union will consider training more Ukrainian soldiers and may lift restrictions on their weapons being used by Kyiv to strike deep into Russian territory. DD India's Alex Kadia reports from Brussels.
The big focus for the defense ministers at this meeting was Ukraine. We heard that from Josep Borrell, and we heard that from, frankly, most of the EU's defense ministers. That was divided into three sections. One was support for Ukraine and whether or not neighboring countries, particularly Poland, would start intercepting Russian assets flying through their airspace to target Ukraine. That has been a request by the Ukrainian government for a while. There is concern from Poland, from the NATO alliance, from the EU that if they do shoot down Russian weapons in their skies, that involves them in a way that could risk escalation. That was one big question. The other one, of course, was with regards to Ukrainian air defense and whether or not the European Union would consider allowing Ukraine to strike deeper into Russian territory with European weapons. That is something that, particularly when it comes to Germany and France and their weapons, there are still restrictions placed on how deep into Russia Ukraine could use them. The Ukrainian government wants to target Russian military infrastructure deep into the country. That same infrastructure being used to strike civilian targets in Ukraine. So that was a big part of this meeting as well. We heard from the foreign ministers just a day before looking at potential sanctions against two Israeli ministers, not officially confirmed, but the assumption is it's the finance minister Bezalel Smotrich and the national security Itamar Ben-Gvir. Josep Borrell, the EU's top diplomat, pushing quite hard for sanctions based on their statements about Palestinians, something which Josep Borrell said could have been in breach of international law. So clearly the focus on Ukraine, on possibly lifting those restrictions, on possibly shooting down Russian assets in European skies, and of course on funding Ukraine's reconstruction with frozen Russian assets after the war. So a lot for those defense ministers to get through. In Brussels, Alex Khadje reporting for DD India.
Time to take a short break, but still to come on DD India NewsHour. China, Philippines accuse each other of ramming ships in South China Sea. At least 6 dead in Japan as Typhoon Shanshan crept eastward through Japan. An Indian embassy in Laos rescues 47 nationals from cyber scams centers in Golden Triangle SEZ. Welcome back after that short break. Moving on, now it's time to quickly recollect the top headlines of the hour. Commemorating 75 years of the Supreme Court of India, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi says strict legislations have been enacted for the safety of women, says Supreme Court enhances glory of India as the mother of democracy. United Nations all set to vaccinate Gaza's children against polio during persistent fighting. WHO delivers 1.2 million polio vaccine doses. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar says there is a general China problem and India is not the only country in the world that is having a debate about China. Now the latest on Israel. Israel's military on Saturday said its forces killed 2 people in separate incidents in the occupied West Bank after one infiltrated an Israeli settlement and another shot at soldiers after his car exploded. Video released by the military at Karmeh Zur showed a burnt-out vehicle and forces assessing the scene. Israel's ambulance service said 2 men were wounded by gunshots in the incidents. It did not identify them. Soldiers who arrived at the scene killed one assailant who had opened fire at them and were searching for others. In another incident, a car caught fire and exploded in a gas station. Military said it was too soon to know if the incidents were related. Hamas, however, issued a statement on Saturday praising what it called a double heroic operation in the West Bank. The group, however, did not claim direct responsibility for the attacks. Violence in the West Bank, already on the rise before the conflict in Gaza, has escalated recently with stepped-up Israeli military raids and settler and Palestinian street violence. Helicopters were seen hovering in the sky over Jenin and areas surrounding it on Saturday as an Israeli major operation in West Bank entered its 4th day. The operation, that is yet to conclude, began in the early hours of Wednesday with hundreds of Israeli troops backed by helicopters, drones and armoured personnel carriers raiding the flashpoint cities in Tulkarm, Jenin and areas in the Jordan Valley. There was also a complete network outage at Jafal, one of the 2 main telecommunication companies in the Palestinian territories of Gaza and the West Bank. Meanwhile, sirens blared during the night on Friday in areas around Kiryat Shmona as numerous rockets were launched towards northern Israel. The Israeli military said the rockets were fired from Lebanon. According to Israel's army, some of the projectiles were intercepted while the remaining few fell in open areas, resulting in fires. In response to the attacks, it said its air force had struck a number of Hezbollah facilities in southern Lebanon. The United Nations will start vaccinating some 640,000 children in the Gaza Strip against polio on Sunday, a campaign that relies on daily 8-hour pauses in fighting between Israel and Hamas in specific areas of the besieged enclave. The complex campaign, which is targeting children under the age of 10, follows a confirmation last week that a baby was paralyzed by type 2 polio virus, the first such case in territory in 25 years. WHO officials say at least 90% of the children need to be vaccinated twice with 4 weeks between doses for the campaign to succeed, but it faces huge challenges in Gaza that has been largely destroyed by nearly 11 months of conflict. The UN agency said that the campaign would occur in 3 phases: in central phase, in southern phase and in northern Gaza. The World Health Organization's Director General, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, has issued an appeal for the protection of health teams preparing for the polio vaccination campaign in Gaza. Tedros further stressed that it is imperative for all the parties involved to ensure the safety of health workers, medical facilities and children during the rollout of this vital public health initiative. In the USA, at the Moms for Liberty conference, former US President Donald Trump criticized Vice President Kamala Harris, calling her a defective person. The event aimed at galvanizing support among Trump's base, focusing on conservative education policies. Trump addressed issues like school choice and transgender athletes, while also criticizing Biden administration's education approach. Trump expressed surprise over Harris's limited media presence, suggesting that her lack of interviews reflected poorly on her capabilities.
She's defective. She's a defective person. And we don't need another defective person as President of the United States. We just had that.
As Trump addressed the crowd, he also underscored his stance on issues like transgender surgeries by calling those horrible and crazy.
All of the things we're talking about, no men and women sports, no gender operation. I mean, these operations, it's crazy. You know, I don't know if you know, Europe has gone totally away from it now.
Yes, sir.
We're way behind them. They don't do it anymore. And this is just horrible. But who could even believe this is happening? So think of it. You have these parents that end up in fistfights at school meetings, and the parents mean well. They end up getting arrested, put in prison.
A Brazilian Supreme Court justice ordered the immediate suspension of social media platform X in the country after a court-imposed deadline expired for the company to identify a legal representative in Brazil. The move is the latest chapter in an ongoing feud between Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Alexander de Moraes and Elon Musk that also included the freezing of satellite internet provider Starlink's financial accounts in Brazil. Amid the underlying feud over X, Brazil's Supreme Court also blocked the local bank accounts of the Starlink satellite internet firm that is 40% owned by Musk, leading the company on Friday to ask the court to suspend that order. Shifting focus to Asia Pacific now. In the latest episode of an escalating series of clashes in the vital waterway of the South China Sea, the Philippines and China exchanged accusations of intentionally ramming each other's Coast Guard vessels in disputed waters on Saturday. The collision near the Sapina Shoal is their fifth maritime confrontation in a month in a long-standing rivalry. Beijing claims almost the entire South China Sea, including parts claimed by the Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia, Taiwan and Vietnam. Amid rising tensions with Beijing in the South China Sea, Vietnam and the Philippines agreed to advance military ties and deepen collaboration on maritime security front. Now this came as Vietnam's defense minister met his Philippine counterpart in Manila in his first visit as defense chief. The talks focused on maintaining peace and stability in South China Sea. DD India's Laura Westbrook has more inputs from Hong Kong.
This is Vietnamese Defense Minister's Phan Van Giang's first visit to Manila since taking up that new role. He met with his Philippine counterpart Gilberto Teodoro, as well as the Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., where he paid him a courtesy call. And the Philippine leader really emphasized the fact that he wants to build and have deeper cooperation with Vietnam. The two countries have agreed to deepen their military and defense cooperation. They've signed letters of intent, both in disaster relief and military medicine. And they also aim to sign a defense agreement by the end of the year. And they've also said that they want to resolve their disagreements within the framework of international law. Now, the Vietnamese defense minister told a briefing that the two sides shared the importance of maintaining peace, stability, and freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. Well, this comes at a time of tension in the South China Sea. In recent months, we've seen more frequent and combative encounters between the Philippines and China. China claims almost all the South China Sea, and the Philippines has also its claims. And that has really raised concerns of tensions, this situation possibly escalating into something bigger. And so the two sides really seem to agree to want to work together to manage the situation. And the Philippines and Vietnam have also, earlier this month, held their own joint exercises in simulating firefighting drills and search and rescue operations. So this really does seem to be these two countries wanting to work together when it comes to combating what it sees as aggressive moves by China in the South China Sea.
In major weather update, at least 6 people were dead as Typhoon Shanshan crept eastward through Japan on Saturday, drenching large areas with torrential rain, triggering landslide and flood warnings hundreds of kilometers from the storm center. Homes with roofs partly sheared off, while cars drove wheels deep on flooded roads in the country's southwest. The storm made landfall in Kyushu on Thursday, bringing record level of rainfall. According to the officials, 1 person was missing and more than 100 have been injured. More than 35,000 homes were without power in southern Kyushu's Kagoshima prefecture. And DD India's Chris Gilbert has sent us this report from Tokyo on this.
What was Typhoon Shanshan battering West Japan earlier in the week is now becoming Tropical Depression Shanshan. That's 3 categories below typhoon, but that is not to downplay the havoc that it has wrought and the dangers and perils which still remain, starting with West Japan in Kyushu, where at the storm's peak, power was cut to 250,000 households. In Miyazaki City in Kyushu alone, there were 160 reports of damage to buildings, 70% of them due to strong winds which ripped the roofs and walls of many structures, and there were also 22 injuries in Miyazaki as well, largely from the high winds when windows blew out, covering passers-by in glass. And there's still the strong danger of landslides and mudslides that could eventuate from deluges all over the country. 3 people have died already in a landslide which hit a house in central Aichi prefecture with 5 people inside. The other 2 were rescued. And there was also, as I say, the danger of deluges. Even far from where the storm is, in all parts of the country, the warm front coming off the storm is creating heavy rain that is loosening soil, that is raising the water level of rivers to bursting point. It is creating floods. And as I say, the danger of landslides is very real. And so places like Tokyo and central Japan are set to receive up to 700 millimeters of rain by Monday, and authorities are urging people to remain vigilant. Meanwhile, travel remains disrupted. Large parts of the Shinkansen, the bullet train main line, are either suspended, cancelled, or running on an altered schedule. Toyota, the car manufacturer, has 14 of its plants closed throughout the country going into next week, and authorities really are urging people not to be complacent and to stay hunkered down until the danger has well and truly passed. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo reporting for DD India.
And now it's time to take a look at other stories making news around the globe. Malaysia celebrated its 67th Independence Day in its capital, Putrajaya. King Sultan Ibrahim and Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim took centre stage as they witnessed a grand display of unity and strength. The celebration features an impressive array of parades and military processions, showcasing the dedication and discipline of nation's armed forces. Over 17,000 participants, including soldiers, police officers, took part in the celebrations. Pacific leaders removed Taiwan from communique following complaints by China's envoy to increase its security presence. China says Taiwan is one of its provinces with no rights to state-to-state relations, a position the democratically governed island strongly disputes. Taiwan's diplomatic allies in the Pacific have reduced in recent years as China has increased offers of development funding. September the 1st, 2024 will mark the 20th anniversary of Beslan school siege, in which more than 330 hostages lost their lives. The 3-day siege ended in a chaotic gun battle and was the bloodiest incident of its kind in modern Russian history. The European Court ruled that Russia used excessive force to storm the school in 2004, causing a high number of hostages being killed. A military parade in Libreville, led by transitional President Praisolekio Nikiuma, marks the first anniversary of 2023 coup that ended the 55-year Bongo dynasty in Gabon. The event highlights the military's continued influence in the country's political landscape. Greenhouse sauna is providing a lifeline to hundreds of endangered green and golden bell frogs in Sydney, Australia. The frogs, sheltered from the winter cold inside the warm structure, are also being protected from a deadly chytrid fungus that threatens to wipe out the species. The innovative setup offers a crucial defense against the fungus, helping to ensure the frog's survival. Embassy of India in Laos has successfully rescued 47 Indians who were trapped in cyber scam centers at the Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone in Bokeh province of Lao PDR. Of these, 29 were handed over to the embassy by Lao authorities after their crackdown on illegal activities in Golden Triangle Socio-Economic Zone, while other 18 had approached the embassy in distress seeking help. The embassy has also undertaken and completed all procedural requirements of Lao authorities for their repatriation to India. Of these, 30 have already safely returned to India or are on their way, while the remaining 17 are only awaiting travel arrangements to be firmed up and would be leaving soon from Lao PDR. The embassy has so far rescued 635 Indians and ensured their safe return to India. The embassy has also strongly advised any Indians planning to take up any job offer in Lao PDR to exercise utmost care and caution and do the due diligence thoroughly to avoid being duped. They may carefully go through the detailed advisory available at embassy's website at www.indianembassy.laos.gov.in or contact the embassy in case of any doubt. The Indian government has unveiled a groundbreaking initiative that aims at propelling India to the forefront of the global biotechnology sector. The new BioE3, which is Biotechnology for Economy, Employment and Environmental Policy, was released by Union Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh in Delhi on Saturday that promises to transform nation's manufacturing landscape. According to the minister, India's bioeconomy has seen explosive growth, skyrocketing from $10 billion in 2014 to over $130 billion in 2024. With projections to reach $300 billion by 2030, the policy aims to further boost this momentum. Key features of the policy include the establishment of biomanufacturing hubs, bio-AI clusters and support for entrepreneurship in various sectors, including bio-based chemicals and precision biotherapeutics.
Right now, we have 86% of our fuel consumption being met by petrol. And the entire petrol comes from the other countries. So if we are able to recycle 25% plastic waste, 25% biomass and the rest of the carbon dioxide, we would become totally undependent, non-dependent on the petroleum sources. So that will not only live up to the concept of Atmanirbhar Bharat, but it will also make us self-sufficient and domestically much more independent. Future economy of the world is going to be largely bioeconomy driven or bio driven. And just as the industrial revolution of 1990s was IT driven, the next revolution of the 21st century is going to be bio driven. And why it becomes significant for us is that while the IT revolution was led by the West, but this time I think it's now going to be India's turn. And India has an opportunity to take a lead in this next revolution.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the country. India's Chief of the Naval Staff, Admiral Dinesh K. Tripathi, presided over operational level discussions conducted by the Indian Navy in Kochi that continued until Friday. During the 4-day intense deliberations, Indian Navy's operational concepts and responses to various scenarios, including fire services synergy and coordination with the Coast Guard and other maritime agencies, were critically analysed. India has slashed windfall tax on domestically produced crude oil by 11.9% to 1,850 rupees from previous 21,000 rupees per tonne, effective from 31st of August. A windfall tax is a higher tax rate on a particular company or industry on significant above average profits due to economic conditions. Indian government has accorded Navratna status to the National Hydroelectric Power Corporation, giving it a greater operational and financial autonomy. NHPC has been given the status considering its remarkable role in tapping the hydropower potential of the country. In addition to this, the company has also diversified in wind and solar energy options. You're watching DDI NewsHour. It's now time to get you all the latest from the world of sports. Defending champion Novak Djokovic suffered a shocking US Open exit after losing to Alexei Popyrin in the third round. Djokovic suffered a major upset at the hands of Australian Alexei Popyrin with a 6-4, 6-4, 2-6, 6-4 defeat in the third round of the US Open. Popyrin, who lost to Djokovic at both the Australian Open and Wimbledon this year, reached the round of 16 of a major for the first time. The loss now means that Djokovic will end the season of US Open without a Grand Slam title for the first time since 2017. India's Yuki Bhamri and his French partner Albano Olivetti moved into the men's doubles third round of the US Open. They secured a hard-fought victory over Austin Krejcik and Jean-Julien Rojer. The Indo-French pair defeated USA's Krejcik and his Dutch partner Jean-Julien Rojer by 4-6, 6-3 and 7-5. However, another Indian, N. Sriram Balaji, and his Argentine partner Guido Endriosi exited the US Open after losing to Michael Venus of New Zealand and Neil Skupski of Great Britain. And now it's time to take a look at all the updates from Paris Paralympics. India's Sukant Kadam entered semi-finals in para-badminton SL4 category. Sukant beat Thailand's Siripong Timorom by 2-0. And with this, Sukant joins Suhas Yatiraj in SL4 category of para-badminton. So with two Indians lined up for para-badminton semi-finals, India is confirmed at least of a bronze medal for now. Indian shuttler Mandeep Kaur also advanced to the quarterfinals of the women's singles SL3 category at the Paris Paralympics by defeating Australia's Vinocelina Riley. After an initial setback against Nigeria's Bolaji Mariam, Kaur bounced back to claim victory in her final Group B match with scores of 21-23, 21-10 and 21-17. Mandeep's victory ensured that she finished second in a three-player Group B, earning her a place in the quarterfinals. On Saturday, Indian shuttlers Nitesh Kumar, Krishna Nagar, Manoj Sarkar, Sukant Kadam, Sivrajan Solamai and Tarun Rai are competing in various men's singles category, out of which Sukant Kadam has already made it to the semi-finals. On to cricket now. Sri Lanka slumped to 196 all out on day 2 to concede a huge lead in the second test at Lord's after Gus Atkinson's superb maiden century put England in control of the match. Kamindu Mentis provided the only real resistance and was the last man out when he tried to slog Atkinson but could only spoon a simple catch to Chris Wokes. England elected not to enforce the follow-on and finished on 25 for 1, a lead of 256 with Dan Lawrence the only wicket to fall. The damage was done in the afternoon session when Sri Lanka lost 5 wickets, including the veteran pair of Angelo Matthews and Dinesh Chandimal in quick succession. And before we let you go, it's time to get you some amazing visuals. The city of Saidia will host the 9th session of its film festival called Cinema Without Borders. The event aims at bolstering the city's tourism industry by attracting visitors through enhanced cultural and cinematic attractions. Introducing Moroccan and foreign cinematic production, revitalize the Blue Jewel and support the city's tourism takeoff.
لا ما عاوتاني عندنا كيسحب لي كون تفارقنا راسكو فرق عملت تبركي هذا ساك عجبني درتو به انتيا باش نخرج انا بنتي خاويه.
And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Deepika Mehta, and from all of us here in Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India News Hour.